In the Unresolved Problems segment tonight, GOP defections from Donald Trump. Some big-name Republicans are so anti-Trump, they say they'll vote for Hillary Clinton. Among them, Hewlett-Packard's Meg Whitman, former Treasury Secretary Henry Paulson, former Deputy Secretary of State Richard Armitage, and longtime presidential advisor Brent Scowcroft. Others, like Illinois Congressman Adam Kinzinger, won't go that far, but won't vote for Trump either.
I'm an American before I'm a Republican. For me personally, and I'm not trying to say to other people that you can't support Donald Trump. I'm saying for me personally, how can I support that? Because he has crossed so many red lines that a commander-in-chief or a candidate for commander-in-chief should never cross.
But does any of this really matter for Trump's chances in November? Joining us now from Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, Republican Congressman Charlie Dent. He's also refusing to vote for Trump. Welcome, Congressman. Let me start off with this. Yeah, you've heard of the Buckley rule?
What was it? I didn't hear your question.
The Buckley rule. The Buckley rule is that we're obligated as conservatives to vote for the most conservative candidate, and in this case, it has to be Donald Trump.
Well, my immediate response to that is I agree with my colleague Adam Kinzinger, who said a lot of red lines have been crossed. My reservations about Donald Trump, our Republican nominee, is that he has made some very disparaging statements about POWs and John McCain, the disabled, Mexicans, Muslims, women. There was the David Duke debacle, the Indiana judge, and of course, most recently, the Khan family dust-up. These issues, along with the lack of policy specifics and, frankly, general lack of policy knowledge, have caused me a lot of concern, and that's why I just can't cross this bridge. I'm absolutely opposed to Hillary Clinton. I believe she disqualified herself from serving as commander-in-chief, certainly based on the way she mishandled negligently.
I understand that, Congressman. Here's another part of the problem. Adam Kinzinger comes from Illinois. There's a good chance Donald Trump would have a zero chance in Illinois anyway. You're coming from Pennsylvania. People in your district voted overwhelmingly for Donald Trump. Well,
believe me, I understand that, but we're talking about a general election now. We're not talking about a primary election at this point. But
don't you represent the people of Pennsylvania? Don't you represent the people of your district? Your district alone encompasses Lehigh Valley. Lehigh Valley went 57%, I believe, for Donald Trump.
Yeah, well, let's face it. A lot of the congressional districts did go for Donald Trump in the primary, but now we're talking about
all of them.
But we're talking
not
about
a lot of them. Well, everyone in Pennsylvania.
I believe the one in Philadelphia actually went for John Kasich. I had endorsed John Kasich in the primary.
I'm pretty sure every one of them, but I could be wrong. We'll check it.
Well, yeah, I believe on that one in Philadelphia. But nevertheless, as I said, look, like Adam Kinzinger said, I am a Republican. I am American. I am concerned about some of the statements I've been hearing. Just last week on Russia, Donald said that Russia wouldn't go into Ukraine. They've annexed.
Okay, so maybe he didn't know. Maybe he made a mistake. Congressman, do you realize that the Supreme Court is 4-4, and if Hillary Clinton gets elected because people like you don't vote for Donald Trump, you're going to have a liberal Supreme Court. And if Ruth Bader Ginsburg retires, that will be replaced by yet another liberal. You'll have a liberal Supreme Court going down maybe, I don't know, our children or grandchildren's lifetimes.
Well, Eric, you mentioned the Supreme Court. Look, I want to make sure that we put somebody in there that embraces our values on the Supreme Court, too. But then why would the nominee be picking a fight with John McCain and Kelly Ayotte?
Congressman, you're playing around these satellite things like he's picking a fight. How about immigration at the Supreme Court level? How about gun control at the Supreme Court level? How about minimum wage at the Supreme Court level? These are things I worry about my 17 or 18-year-old son has to worry about and deal with for his lifetime. Not whether or not Donald Trump fights with John McCain.
Well, Eric, we need to maintain the Senate. Fighting with John McCain and Kelly Ayotte, two senators who are in very difficult re-elections, criticizing them does not advance our interests in trying to maintain the Supreme Court. If Chuck Schumer is in charge of the Senate, it's going to be very difficult for a President Trump, for example, to get
not voting for Donald Trump will help you win the Senate. How?
Well, look, my priority in this election is to maintain the Senate and to maintain the House. Like I said,
and so saying you're going to sit this election out is a way that you'll maintain the Senate or the House. Congressman, it's backward logic. It's the reason the American public is so tired of business as usual in D.C.
Well, the American public, I agree, the American public is sick and tired of business as usual in D.C. They're also very disgusted with this presidential campaign. Many Americans with whom I speak on a regular basis are telling me they're very unhappy with the choices that they have right now. And candidly, I feel the same way based on all of these comments.
I think you and
hearing.
Kinzinger need to really rethink this. Sit down and say, look, this Supreme Court is vastly more important than these little satellite issues that you guys are having problems with. That's just my opinion, Congressman. Thank you for joining us on The Factor tonight.